So I just wanted to welcome everyone. As Nikki said, I'm hosting this morning. My name is Rachel Degar-Sanders. I'm the director of Chase Life Extension Foundation. We're the creators of One Truth 818 Serum, and my company also provides research for money for research into anti-aging. The scientist in the company that we work with is Dr. Bill Andrews from Sierra Sciences, who was just waving at you before. Dr. Bill is an award-winning molecular biologist. He discovered the enzyme telomerase, which gained him Inventor of the Year award in the United States. Popular Science calls him the man who would stop time, and he's named on over 50 issued patents in the US, which is unheard of in his field. He really is leading the way in the fight against aging and all age-related diseases, and it's such a privilege and honour to have Bill at our disposal when it comes to One Truth related matters. Thank you, Bill, for joining us on this call today.
Thank you.
But why we're here on this call really is because Bill's also created the world's strongest telomerase inducer ever. Now, to make sense of everything that I've just said to you, because some of those words may be like, he did what? They call him who? We'll go right back to the very beginning, and Bill's going to tell us what he knows about aging, about telomeres, how they relate to aging, how he discovered it. But let's start at the very beginning. Bill, you've been obsessed with finding a cure for aging since you were 10 years old. What did you discover about aging that led you to become a telomere biologist?
Well, let's just say that I first never ever could make sense out of the theories that existed about aging. People like to think that we age because of the environment. We're exposed to the wind, the sun, the rain, just like an old truck sitting in the field that ages. But we aren't like an old truck that sits in a field. We actually have cells that divide to replace dead cells. Trucks don't. And it always bothered me that if we are so susceptible to the environment in terms of aging, why is it that people who live on the North and South Poles age at the same rate as people who live on the equator? Why do dogs and cats age at a different rate than humans when they're in the same environment as us? And so a lot of things just didn't make sense. A lot of exciting things have happened in the last 20 years that has really changed our whole concept of what aging is all about. And still, unfortunately, a lot of people still stick to the old theories because they're not really keeping up on everything that's happened in the 20 years. Even though a Nobel Prize was awarded, I was awarded some pretty spectacular awards for discoveries in this field. But, a lot of studies have shown that mice, roundworms, fruit flies, and yeast age by oxidative stress and mitochondria dysfunction. But we aren't any of the above. We don't age by that, and no study has ever been done that's been published or unpublished that has actually shown that humans are like mice, roundworms, fruit flies, and yeast. You can extend the lifespan of those organisms by 2 to 3-fold by giving them antioxidants or things like resveratrol and many other things, but it just doesn't work in primates. There's been big studies done off the coast of Georgia where they've looked at primates for over 20 years, and such things had no effect on their aging and overall health at all. But I always thought there had to be some kind of clock that's ticking inside of us to explain how humans aren't as susceptible to the environment as other, like the mice, roundworms, fruit flies, and yeast are. And I should say that dogs, cats, horses, sheep, pig, and deer have also been clumped into being like humans. They age like humans. But this clock eluded me for a long time. Even though I was interested in aging and was following everything going on, nothing made sense as to what could be the clock until in the early 1990s, I attended a seminar and heard somebody talk about the fact that the very tips of your chromosomes can actually, you can look at them in the microscope, you can do biochemical assays on the tips, and you can actually see that they get shorter as you age. And at first people thought this was a result of aging. It was the analogy that was often used was that our chromosomes were like shoelaces, and the tips, the caps on your shoelaces were equivalent to the telomeres on your chromosomes. But as you used your shoelaces a lot, the caps got shorter and shorter. So your shoelaces finally fell apart. And so this is what people were saying was happening with our chromosomes. But we had discovered that this shortening actually didn't occur in our reproductive cells. And it was important that they don't occur in our reproductive cells, because if they did, our children would be born with shorter telomeres than we had, and their children would be born with even shorter telomeres than they had. And eventually your chromosomes would get so short you wouldn't have a chromosome left, and we'd be extinct as a species after only about 6 or 7 generations. So our bodies have figured out some way to prevent the telomeres from shortening in our reproductive cells. And let me just summarize quickly. Chromosomes are where our genes are. They're found inside of our cells. Humans are made up of 100 trillion cells. Inside of each cell are chromosomes, and they encode all the genes. They have the genes that give us our eye color, hair color, things like that. So you can look at them. You typically see something that looks like an X when you see them in the microscope. And it's the very tips of those chromosomes that I'm talking about. That's where the telomeres are. And they get shorter, and you can actually see that in the microscope. But they don't get shorter in our reproductive cells, as I mentioned. So in the early 1990s, to early to mid 1990s, right after I heard about this whole concept that telomeres get short, and they get short in such a way that you could actually measure them and tell a person how old they are, and more importantly, how long it'll be before they die of old age. And I thought, here's that clock. Well, I joined that team instantly. I left my previous company where I was doing cancer research and heart disease research and inflammation research, just jumped ship over to this other company called Geron Corporation, and started working on trying to figure out how to solve this problem. And I discovered this enzyme called telomerase inside our reproductive cells. And it was the enzyme that was keeping our telomeres from getting short there. After I discovered it, I instantly put it into, isolated the enzyme and the gene for the enzyme, and put it into regular human skin cells grown in a petri dish. And I found that not only did they stop aging, but their aging got reversed by every method of measurement you can imagine. Okay, the telomeres actually got longer in the presence of this enzyme, and the cells got younger. Then we took, so this was just human cells in a petri dish. Next thing we did is we took human skin and grew it on the back of a mouse, and then treated with this enzyme telomerase. And again, we found the skin got younger. I mean, both in appearance, everything. Its ability to form blisters decreased. All the genes that are involved that you've heard about, like collagenase, collagen, elastinase, elastin, all these things were reversed among at least 20 other different genes. So the skin became younger by every, again, method of measurement you can imagine. Then a colleague of mine at Harvard, because of the fact that we actually don't do animal research at all, he actually did it. I'd mentioned that mice don't age by the same mechanisms that humans do, but you can engineer mice. You can do anything you want with mice to create any kind of mouse you want. So he created mice that do have the same aging mechanisms as humans. And he let these mice get really, really old. They couldn't walk around anymore. They couldn't breathe. They couldn't remember how to go through a maze. Everything you can imagine about aging was occurring in these mice. They actually, a lot of people who were actually working with them said they looked like old humans. But then they fed them a substance that turned the gene on, the telomerase gene on, so the cells started producing telomerase. And these mice got younger in every way imaginable. They could breathe again. They could remember things they had forgotten how to do, which is suggesting maybe we can actually reverse Alzheimer's. But this was really, really exciting. And unfortunately, the technique that was used there can't be used on humans. It also can't even be used on other mice. It can only be used on these engineered mice. But at least the mice, they got older and they got younger by turning on telomerase and lengthening the telomeres. I'm hoping in the future that we're going to be able to do the same thing with humans. But so far, we're not quite there yet, but we have developed some close approximations to it. Let's say that we have we have discovered chemicals and natural products, but the chemicals are a lot stronger than the natural products. We discovered chemicals that will cause the telomerase gene to get produced, or telomerase to get produced in all of our cells, but not enough to actually cause reversal of aging. Or at least we thought so. And Rachel will tell you more about that with the clinical studies. We still see that the average telomeres still get shorter, but they get shorter at a shorter rate, which is suggesting that we can extend lifespan and slow down the aging process. But we also discovered, which we didn't expect, that the shortest telomeres actually got longer, even though the longer ones are still getting shorter, which was suggesting that maybe there is some age reversal kind of going on, but not at the levels that we'd like to see, not at the levels that we saw with these mice, which had all their telomeres get longer. So the shortest telomeres are the ones that are wreaking most of the havoc on our skin and our aging and stuff like that. And lengthening just those short ones is actually having some dramatic results, as Rachel will tell you, unlike anything you've ever seen before, except in science fiction movies. So I think that's where we're at right now. We have a lot going on. I can tell you that a lot of the profits that come from the sales of this stuff go to our research to develop even better products in the future. So anybody who's actually going to be using the skin cream is doing more than just helping themselves, they'll be helping everybody. So I guess if I left anything out, let me know, Rachel.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was really thorough. I enjoyed this, and guys, Bill and I do this quite frequently, and I always, just sit here listening. It's amazing how passionate Bill is about his research and about what he does. You wouldn't be able to fathom how many times he has told this to people, and still has so much enthusiasm behind it. And that is one of the reasons that we just love working with Bill, because of his passion and just as his drive. Sierra Science's motto is "Cure aging or die trying," and that's not a tagline made up from a marketing team. That's Bill's motto. Yeah. So, Bill mentioned a few things about that I would get to. So, when Sierra Sciences started looking for chemicals and molecules and substances that would induce telomerase, so I don't know if I do this or you, Bill, but there is a telomerase gene in every cell, not just reproductive cells. But the problem with it, if you're not a reproductive cell, there's basically a door on it. This is the very simplified version, I guess, because I'm doing it. There's a door on that. And so what Sierra Sciences have been looking for is a key to unlock that door. So when we say that we are a telomerase activating molecule, that's where the TAM comes from. That's really important, because we've already started seeing some imitators out there in the skincare industry claiming to have telomerase in their products. The ludicrousness of where they may have got that telomerase, put that aside, even if they had a bottle of telomerase and whopped it on your skin, it couldn't even penetrate the cell. Telomerase is a really big molecule. So if it's not beginning from within the cell, it's not getting into the cell. So that's something that we really have to educate our clients as well, because they may be hearing that from some snake oil people. So what we have is a TAM, a telomerase activating molecule. So basically it's a molecule that absorbs into the skin cell and attracts that door. The door likes it, the door opens, and then the gene just expresses telomerase. I guess, Bill, you could kind of almost say it's just a genetic fault that the other cells lost the ability to produce telomerase.
Actually, there's a very good explanation for it, and it's more of an evolutionary thing. There's no evolutionary advantage to living longer than it takes to raise our young. Once we raised our young, we are in the way, and in order to adapt to changing environments in the future, our species needs to shuffle genes as much as possible, and the genes are going to get shuffled a lot better by letting our children breed as opposed to us continuing to breed. So it's all species, or almost all species, have evolved a mechanism to essentially knock off the old people people or animals in the species, just to allow the young to be able to shuffle genes. And so we did it by having telomere shortening. We did it by shutting off the telomerase gene. And as soon as when we're a single cell embryo, and then we start to divide and become about 8 cells, the telomerase gene gets shut off. The door gets closed, as Rachel was just saying, in every cell except one of those cells. And that one cell becomes our, let's call it our primordial germ cell line, and which leads to the production of our sperm and our eggs. But all the other cells, they just close the door on this telomerase, and as a result, they start aging in such a way that it times it so that we die of just about the time we've raised our young, okay? Because there's no advantage to living longer. So that's why this whole process has been developed. But we're smarter than evolution nowadays. Well, we've made some stupid mistakes, but we are in control of our own destiny. And so right now we can undo the evolutionary system that causes us to age and start undoing it. Now, other animals like mice, they did it. They didn't shut off the telomerase gene. They evolved a different mechanism of aging, which is called oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction, and that's what most animals have done. And that's why all these other animals are so people keep finding things that extend their lifespan, but it doesn't work in humans. And then, believe it or not, there are some animals that don't have any detectable aging process at all, like lobsters, humpback whales, some fish, some birds, tortoises. People keep saying, tortoises live to be 100 years old. 20 years later, they'll say they live to be 120 years old. 20 years later, they'll say they live to be 140 years old, because nobody knows yet how long a tortoise can live. They just keep testing and testing, and nobody ever asked the question until the time of Darwin. So it's only been about 150 years, but even Darwin's pet tortoise, Harriet, just died recently, I think at 130 years old. I forget what it is, but maybe it's 180 years old. But humans, we do have this system of telomere shortening, and it is a major, if not the major cause of aging in humans. So, Rachel, why don't you take over from there?
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so breed and die, basically. It's an awful message that we're giving people, but I guess that's science for you. But at the end of the day, look, as I said, why we're here is because Bill did discover the world's strongest telomerase inducer ever. My company, Chase Life Extension Foundation, has taken this. We've made it cosmetic ready, really easy and effectively delivered into the skin. And we've called it TAM 818. Now, the 818 comes from the fact that it was the 304,818th molecule that
314,818th molecule we tested.
14,000, yeah. But I lost 10,000 there somewhere. That Bill and his team discovered. So hence the cute little 818 on the end. That's a nod to the years that they spent doing that. And what we have found is, as Bill was hinting at, is that when you use 818 on the skin, yes, it does penetrate the skin cell and it does open the door. Now, when Bill says it doesn't open it enough, now that's because, remember, his mission is to cure aging and all age-related diseases. But it opens it a little bit. And at first we thought that you wouldn't be able to see much. Certainly Bill and his team thought you'd see nothing, that you would just, because it was mild, it was what they call a 16 out of 100, and that if I was the only one using it in 10 years' time, I would look like I had aged less than the people around me. But what we did find is that we are seeing incredible age reversal. And the science about telomerase lengthening, preferentially lengthening the critically short telomeres, is new. That actually happened after we'd formulated One Truth 818. So when we were looking for an explanation as to why that happened, because scientists, we were fine. We were like, hey, no wrinkles. And scientists were like, hey, no explanation? What's going on here? So they hunted out that research that was done by someone else, and before everyone was focused on the average length of a telomere, and then they realized that actually the really important thing was the critically short telomeres. As Bill says, they're the ones that cause the most havoc. So if you're opening the door to telomerase in every skin cell that you put your TAM 818 on, you are basically making every skin cell younger. And to repeat, Bill, by every measure imaginable. So yes, we're talking wrinkles. They decrease amazingly because your cells begin to produce elastin, produce collagen, they hold on to hyaluronic acid, but they also, like Bill had mentioned that the mice, when the skin was grown on the back of them, that the skin didn't blister like an old person anymore. Well, in humans, because we only test on humans, we've noticed that it actually also just gets rid of pigmentation. Even if it's hormonal, it doesn't have to be sunspots or age related. So everyone who was on our trials either had pigmentation disappear or at least decrease remarkably. In terms of rosacea, which is typically an age related problem, you don't see 20-year-olds walking around with rosacea. To use someone else's words, in Australia at a seminar, a therapist there said, I cured my client's rosacea within 3 weeks, just using One Truth. And that's because it actually goes in and changes the structure of the skin. So you're rebuilding your skin into a new young skin again. So its applications are tremendous. Essentially, I think there's nobody who shouldn't be using it. One Truth is in a gel, really hydrating serum, and so it protects the skin as well. So those sensitive skins, it actually helps with transepidermal water loss as well. So while you're getting the TAM818 in there and rebuilding those skin cells, we're actually also protecting the skin from losing moisture. So it works incredibly well. It is a very oil-rich formula. You won't believe it when you try it if you haven't already, because it just sinks straight into the skin like velvet. But what we've done is use the really refined esters from jojoba oil, macadamia oil, phospholipids. So you don't actually feel the oil content, it goes straight in there. But people with a very oily skin are the only ones that I don't recommend to use as a full face treatment, but they can still use it as an eye cream or a spot treatment on pigmentation. I'm not quite sure how much you've been told about One Truth already, if you want me to keep going on. But I'll tell you a little bit about the clinical trials that Bill alluded to. So once we made One Truth, we're really aware that this is the very first of its kind. There's no other topical application out there that has a mechanism of action like One Truth 818. We have some, use the word competitors with a bit of tongue in cheek. There's one other product on the market we're 300 to 800 times stronger than their telomerase inducing action. So I prefer
80 to 300. It's 80 to 300 times more potent.
Oh, okay. Right.
You said 300 to 800. Yes.
Oh, that's what I've always had. Maybe someone switched the zeros on me.
That's 80 to 300 times, yeah.
I could split down the middle and say 150. 150 times stronger than what's out there. So what we're actually seeing, as I said, is amazing age reversal just from a topical application. So we're not saying that you need to get rid of everything else that your clients are using. The way that I look at it myself is, I'm going to have younger skin and skin that behaves younger, but why not have the best skin possible? So I still feed it the vitamins that I know are great for it, the peptides that I know are feeding it. I still hydrate it properly. I obviously will still protect it from the sun. I'll do all those things. But what I've added into my regime is like an insurance policy. I'm making my skin as young as I possibly can. It's great for clients who are perhaps not interested in going to greater measures to look younger anytime soon. They want to kind of stretch their youthful look out for as long as possible. And also people who are essentially doing things to their skin which are aging it. Now, when I say this, I'm talking about aggressive exfoliation treatments, which currently are what we offer to people when they want to look younger. They look younger and their skin feels great. But if you think of cell division as aging, we're actually increasing the turnover of cell division there. So when we give someone a microdermabrasion or we give someone an aggressive peel, we're actually aging their skin faster. It's like playing with the devil. They'll look fantastic and they walk out of there with a lot of confidence, but we have aged their skin faster than it was aging itself. So most people interested in looking younger are doing these treatments. So they absolutely, please, 100% must be using One Truth as well to be undoing that damage that we are inadvertently causing. And Bill said something at the beginning, that there is all of this new science, and some people just stick with the older thinking. And, I totally appreciate, because I ran my own skincare business for 10 years as well too, that there is so much coming at you that you often focus on what you do and what you're good at, and you educate your clients on that, and you don't have any headspace to be taking on new science. But I know I had gotten to the point in my skincare career where I thought, we just can't blast any harder, and we just can't melt any more. But people still want to look younger. What can we do? Because you get to a point where you think, I don't think what I'm going to do is going to be great. And you have those clients coming back every week going, can I have another microderma? I like it. Can I have another one? Can I have another one? And there was nothing else to offer. But One Truth 818 is new. The science is incredibly new. It's groundbreaking technology. The tests that I had commissioned in Italy to independently test One Truth 818 serum are the most comprehensive tests done in the medical field on inducing telomerase topically. So we really are at the forefront of that. And the product that has emerged from that is One Truth 818. So it's great that it's so easily available, and that it has fantastic benefits for so many different types of skin types and people doing different types of treatment. Those medical trials, they come with numbers, which were, they basically measured wrinkles. We had doctors running the whole trial, and there were 100 people. So that the evidence and proof there is pretty irrefutable. I wonder now if there are any questions from anybody. You can just unmute yourself, give us a little wave, and have any questions for either Bill or myself. Hi, Tony.
Hi, I just have one question. I understand that resveratrol is an antioxidant, but I had a lady from a skincare company come around the other day saying that resveratrol lengthens telomeres. True or not true?
Not true at all. Okay, and a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are trying to say that antioxidants like vitamin E and omega and anti-inflammatories like omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D, they're all trying to say that those things will lengthen telomeres, and it's not true at all. We've tested them all. There's no induction of telomerase whatsoever. But as Rachel said, a lot of people are trying to get on this bandwagon in any way they can and trying to benefit from it, but none of that stuff works. And resveratrol has not actually been shown to be an antioxidant. A lot of studies have been, they don't really know how resveratrol works. All I know is it seems to act as a mimetic to what's called a caloric restriction. Okay, nobody knows how caloric restriction actually works except to reduce the amount of sugar that actually gets processed and turned into energy that releases free radicals. So it's still some debate about what's the actual mechanism of action there.
Thank you.
And Bill, we went through, because when Bill was out here a couple of years ago, we had someone saying, my product has telomerase in it. And alarm bells went off with me and Bill. And so we kind of went to the drawing board. And the best that we could figure out how these people were making a kind of long-winded claim was that there were antioxidants in their product, and antioxidants are proven to keep a cell healthy for longer. And so they had sort of extrapolated that out so much that they had come to the conclusion that, oh, well, these antioxidants must protect telomeres. And we won't use the word protect, we'll just say lengthens them. So it's really...
There's also a skin cream out there. It's named after a woman. I can't remember her name, but I've talked with her at conferences like the A4M conference. She has a booth selling the skin cream because it has telomerase in it. And she and I actually got into a quite heated discussion one time because I was essentially calling her a fraud. Because telomerase is, as Rachel had mentioned, even if you had a tube of telomerase, it's got to get inside your cells to work, and telomerase is too big to get inside cells. It's got to be produced inside the cells in order for it to work. And she didn't have the antioxidants and anything like that. And it turned out what her product really was just an extract of cells, okay? so even if it did have telomerase in it, the amount of telomerase was so minuscule that it wouldn't have made any difference anyway. But it's like it's struck down in several different fronts.
Yeah, and that's part of the question. Well, putting it aside, where did they get the telomerase? Anywhere, because it's either a human, a cat, a dog, a horse. Personally, I don't want to be rubbing them on my face. Were there any other questions at all? Tony, were you surprised when someone came in telling you they had something that lengthened telomeres that wasn't one truth?
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't really believe them because I did come up to Auckland and see Dr. Bill talk, but kind of you forget after, that was about a year ago, so I forget the information you've given me, and then you kind of think, oh, maybe they are right. So then you start thinking, okay, maybe they're correct too, so is it as good as one truth? And that's, you kind of like to think that what they're telling you is truthful, but obviously it's not.
Yeah.
And it's really hard as a nurse having all these reps come around telling you about their products. So who do you believe?
Yeah, yeah. And, I think sometimes it's not coming from a point of deceitfulness. I think sometimes the sales reps kind of hear telomeres, do telomere research online, and then assume that's what their product does, and then pass that information on. Yeah, it's like a bit like Chinese whispers.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're trying to be purposely deceitful. They just don't know, I don't think, themselves.
Yeah, but Bill is literally 11 years ahead of anyone else in this field of research, and, at an expense of $33 million, it's like there's really no one else that can touch what Sierra Sciences has done. And so that's one of the reasons we're so passionate about educating people, because I know that there will be people out there who are being taken for a bit of a ride.
Yeah, no, I've seen Dr. Bill talk. He's great, amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. Hello, Nikki.
Hello. My question was just about when you talked about 16 out of 100. Can you just explain what you mean by that a little bit more, as far as the efficacy, I guess, of the current strength of the telomerase?
Okay, now we have done studies for the last 20 years using gene therapy protocols, where we could look at the amount, get cells, deliver telomerase through cells by a gene therapy protocol. And we could look at the amount of telomerase that's produced inside that cell and the effect that it has on telomeres. And so we've been able to define an amount of telomerase that will actually stop telomere shortening. Telomere shortening is like a tug of war. You've got shortening and lengthening going on at the same time. So think of it, when do we have equal numbers of people on both sides of that tug of war? Well, that would be a score of 100 is what we call it. 16 would be like when we have 100 people pulling to shorten your telomeres and 16 pulling to lengthen them. But those 16 people will slow down those people, and actually, in the case of the shortest telomeres, actually win the tug of war. But they don't actually, they're still going to lose. They just lose at a slower rate. And so we see the age reversal of a lot of different things that are affected by the shortest telomeres. But the aging caused by the longest telomeres are still going to cause us to not look 24 years old again, okay? But when we can get something that's 100, score of 100, I actually expect to see us, or at least get higher than 100. I expect us all to start looking and behaving and feeling like we're 24 years old again. But we're only producing 16% as much telomerase to do that right now, which will make skin look younger and it'll give you a few health advantages, but it's you're still going to age. So that's what 16 means. It's the amount of telomerase that's produced.
It's one way to kind of look at it, Nikki, is there's critically short ones. So, for example, on my face, the critically short ones had some pigmentation and obviously, had some wrinkles. So I literally, like, all my fine lines, we'll call them fine, there's nothing fine about them, but all the fine ones around here have gone and all the pigmentation have gone. But but from 30 years of smiling and talking a lot, these wrinkles here have decreased, but I don't imagine that they're going to go away completely. But they're certainly less noticeable, and the finer ones have gone. So it's sort of, I just had this funny analogy in my mind when Bill was talking about the tug of war. When those 16 people are pulling back, there's some short kids in the 100 and they get pulled over and they fall on the ground, but the big ones are still kind of standing there. But essentially that's why I said that the scientists expected to see nothing, because there was 16 versus 100. And the fact that we actually see what we do, we were quite chuffed that we stumped them for a while to try to figure out what was going on there. And it's to do with those critically short telomeres.
Okay.
There was, Bill, can I just ask you, because people often do, and they may hang up and go, oh, I wish I'd have asked Bill. There's a lot of literature out there about what terrible things can go health-wise when you have too many critically short telomeres, and a lot of evidence proving that all of those can be overcome by keeping your telomeres longer.
Okay, that didn't sound like it ended with a question. What was the question? The question was, do you want me to just explain that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so when a telomere gets critically short, just like with the caps on your shoelaces, your chromosomes start falling apart, just like your shoelace starts falling apart. What happens is that you start getting a lot of mutations and what are called chromosome rearrangements, which are also mutations, where a piece of one chromosome breaks and joins with another chromosome. That's called a chromosome rearrangement. It turns out that when, and this is just in the last year, people start looking at cancer cells and looking to see how many chromosome rearrangements there are, they're finding hundreds in cancer cells. So this mutation rate is really high, and it's totally induced by the short telomeres. So when telomeres get really short, your chances of mutations increase dramatically, and that increases your risk of cancer. Let's just focus on cancer for a second, because cancer is always a mutation. There's no such thing as a cancer that's not a mutation. You have to have mutations to cause genes to get turned on and turned off. They're called oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. You need these mutations to turn them off and on. And so when the telomeres get short, these mutations can occur, and suddenly your cells start growing again. Now, you can treat cancers with like chemotherapy, drugs, and other type of things, but you always find that survivors exist. So you can see a cancer disappear, and the doctor would tell you your cancer is gone, but then 2 or 3 years later, the cancer comes back. Well, that's because even though your cancer, 99.99% of those cells died, there was this 0.01% of the cells, maybe like 100 of them, that had additional mutations because of the short telomeres that made them survive whatever you hit them with. And then also, a lot of cancers, they will start off as just a cancer. By the way, I should say that I've been in cancer research a lot. I won a lot of awards for my cancer research, so I'm considered an expert on cancer, even though I moved away from cancer research and went into telomere research. But then, okay, so getting back to what I was saying, another thing was that a lot of times you'll have a cancer and it'll be contained, but then all of a sudden it'll go through a process called metastasis, or it'll metastasize, which means that all of a sudden it starts spreading to other parts of your body. Again, those are due to mutations, additional mutations. So again, if you could keep the telomeres long, those mutations wouldn't occur. And then one last thing, our best defense against cancer is our immune system. There are doctors that say that we get cancer 7 times a day, but our immune system is so good at identifying them that they're wiped out. But after when our telomeres in our immune cells get short, we no longer can recognize those cancer cells, and so our risk of getting cancer increases dramatically. So there's a lot of benefit to us by keeping our telomeres long. Now, I spent a lot of time on cancer, but the same is true for heart disease. When we've looked at the cells lining your blood vessels where there's plaque, we have found that the telomeres are short. And when we look in other areas and we find that telomeres are long. Well, I'm actually, before I got into telomeres, I was actually as I said, cancer, heart disease, inflammation research. I'm one of the discoverers of something called tissue plasminogen activator, which is an enzyme that doctors will now, ambulances will carry in their ambulances. And when somebody has a heart attack, they'll inject people with this tissue plasminogen activator, and it'll cause the clots to dissolve, the blood clots. So a lot of people's lives get saved by that. But tissue plasminogen activator is actually produced on the cell surface of our cells that line the blood vessels. And when our telomeres get short, that affects their production. And so you don't produce as much. And so that's why you get more plaque buildup. Your ability to have a heart attack due to coronary artery disease is much higher when the telomeres are short. And you know, we've shown that blood pressure, sometimes when I say we, I mean the scientific community and telomere biology in general, because I haven't done any work on blood pressure, but other scientists have shown that blood pressure is affected by telomere length. I could go on in practically everything. Let me say, there isn't a disease that I've ever heard of that has not now been published in scientifically peer-reviewed journal articles showing that. I was just getting a Skype call from Rachel's brother, but I had to hang up. There's not a disease that hasn't been shown to be affected by the length of your telomeres. Some of them haven't been shown cause and effect. They might still be a result of short telomere, they might be a result of aging, or the disease might be causing these persistence. Okay, so, there are some diseases like dyskeratosis congenita, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, idiopathic infertility, aplastic anemia. I can go on and on. These have been actually shown to be caused by the short telomeres, and my guess is that almost every disease is going to be shown to be caused by short telomeres, though other things can cause them too. But keeping telomeres long is going to decrease our risk of every disease you've ever heard of, especially cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis, all these things. Osteoporosis has been shown to be caused by short telomeres too. If we can keep telomeres long, people will not get osteoporosis.
Mm. And of all those things, Bill, to begin with cancer, that's something that we can address on the skin. Now, it's not something that I would ever make a public claim about because I'm not going to try to say that One Truth 818 serum is a medicine or anything like that. But personally, I feel great knowing that when telomerase is being induced in those skin cells and the telomeres are being made longer, that person is going to be less likely to be developing skin cancers. So that's great news for us who are going out there and promoting it out there. Does anyone have any other questions? Let's see, I can't see. I flicked over and I've seen Krista. No questions from Krista this morning?
Clinique has a question.
Sorry, why can't they put this into a pill then?
Well, they is Bill, and he's working on it.
Yes. It's going to be a lot tougher to get approval from regulatory agencies when you actually start putting it internally. So yeah, it is in progress.
Thank you.
And Tony, I spoke to a really reputable doctor in the States a while ago who's been selling One Truth to his patients. And the first thing he does, he gets on the call to me and he goes, "Your product tastes really bad, by the way." I'm like, okay. Well, I heard that from you because I haven't gone around eating it. I may be very generous in my helpings when I rub it on, but I drew the line at actually eating it. So there are some people who feel like that to more extremes and actually went ahead and just did it. I think we'll end it there if there are no more questions, but quickly wave at me if there are. No, we're looking all good. Thank you so much, Bill. That has been really informative. And everyone that you're speaking to here today, basically is now like a little mini ambassador for you to get the right message out there, which is awesome. The more people that we have with a great understanding, and what better way to get it than straight from Bill's mouth. The information we've given you is too much information to give to a client, as I'm sure you understand, but it does make you the expert. And the clients, you know how One Truth works now because you know the mechanism of action behind it. why it's so unique, why it's so different, and why it's real. Why you can actually say that there is real age reversal going on, not just something that makes you look younger temporarily. And that's really what makes it quite different and quite unique. So thank you everyone for joining us on the call. BDEs will be in touch with people and probably have more questions they might come to us with, and you're welcome to fire more questions if they come into your mind later on. And thank you all again. Go forth and enjoy your days.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, Bill.
Rachel, why don't you text your brother?